The quantum dust swirled like ghostly tendrils around the hull of the salvage vessel Horizon, its silver-gray exterior scarred by countless micrometeorite impacts. Inside the cramped bridge, Kira Venn pressed her palm against the reinforced viewport, her eyes scanning the endless asteroid field that stretched before her like a graveyard of forgotten dreams. Sector 7 Gamma was humanity's least hospitable frontier, a treacherous network of rock and ice where only the most desperate or determined could survive. Kira was both. As a xenobiological researcher cut off from her original research team, she had learned that survival meant adaptability. Her communication console flickered with a warning. Oxygen reserves at 62%. The small life support systems of her emergency shelter pod were failing, slowly but inexorably. 3 standard weeks had passed since her research vessel was destroyed, leaving her stranded among the tumbling rocks and silent vacuum. The pod's emergency beacon had long since gone silent. No rescue would come. Not here. Not in this forgotten corner of human expansion, where corporate interests rarely ventured beyond profitable mining routes. A sudden impact rattled the pod's hull. Kira's hand instinctively moved to the survival toolkit secured beside her seat. Years of field research in extreme environments had taught her that panic was a luxury only the dead could afford. The impact came again. Methodical. Deliberate. Something was outside. Daxworks' salvage scanner swept across the asteroid field, its sophisticated sensors cutting through the cosmic debris like a knife. He wasn't on a rescue mission. Salvage operators like him didn't do rescue. They collected valuable resources and left nothing behind. But something about this particular signal was different. Unusual energy readings. A signature that didn't match standard emergency beacons. Interesting, he muttered, his weathered hands dancing across the holographic controls. The Starhawk, his heavily modified retrieval vessel, maneuvered with a precision that spoke of decades spent navigating humanity's most unforgiving spaces. The pod came into visual range. Small, damaged, yet still maintaining structural integrity against all odds. Dax's first instinct was to ignore it. Resources were resources, and a life pod might contain valuable tech or rare minerals from its occupant's last mission. But something made him pause. A faint heat signature. Someone was still alive in there. Kira heard the external grappling mechanisms engage. Whatever was out there wasn't a random asteroid collision. Someone, or something, was deliberately attempting to dock with her pod. Her hand moved to the plasma cutter concealed beneath her environmental suit. If this was a predatory salvage operation, she wasn't going down without a fight. The airlock mechanism began its pressurization sequence. Metallic clicks echoed through the small space. Kira's breath came in controlled rhythms, her body tensed like a coiled spring. When the door finally hissed open, she was ready. Daxworks' silhouette filled the entryway. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of weathered look that spoke of countless journeys through the most unforgiving regions of space. His eyes, a startling shade of steel blue, swept the pod's interior with professional detachment. "Didn't expect to find anyone alive out here," he said, his voice a low gravelly rumble that seemed to vibrate through the pod's metal walls. Kira's plasma cutter remained trained on him. "I'm not looking for charity. Just safe passage." A slight smile crossed Dax's lips. "Charity's not my business, but survival. That's negotiable." The asteroid field churned outside, indifferent to the human drama unfolding within the small pod. Something larger was coming. Something that would test the limits of both their capabilities. Their unexpected encounter was just the beginning. The emergency medical bay of the Starhawk was a stark contrast to the chaos of the asteroid field outside. Clean. Sterile. A small pocket of controlled order in the midst of cosmic uncertainty. Kira winced as Dax applied a medical nanogle to the deep abrasion on her arm, a remnant of her pod's violent separation from its original vessel. Her environmental suit hung in tatters, a testament to her narrow escape. "You're lucky," Dax muttered, his large hands surprisingly gentle as he worked. "Most wouldn't have survived 3 weeks in the emergency pod out here." Kira's laugh was sharp, brittle, Luck had nothing to do with it. Preparation, discipline, those kept me alive. The ship's internal systems hummed softly. External sensors continued to track the bizarre electromagnetic disturbances that had been building since their unexpected encounter. Dax finished treating her wound, then stepped back. "You haven't told me what you were doing out here." Independent researchers don't typically survive long in the Helios frontier without significant backing. Her eyes narrowed. A challenge. Some secrets are better left unspoken. But secrets had a way of demanding to be heard. The communication console suddenly erupted with a burst of static. But this wasn't random interference. The signal carried a pattern. Mathematical. Precise. Kira's entire body went rigid. "That's not possible," she whispered. Dax's hand moved to a weapon concealed near the control panel. "What aren't you telling me?" The signal continued. A complex sequence of mathematical harmonics that seemed to pulse with an intelligence far beyond standard communication protocols. It was a message. Or a warning. Something was out there. Something that had been waiting. The signal intensified, transforming the Starhawk's interior into a symphony of light and electromagnetic vibrations. Holographic projections flickered around Kira and Dax, mathematical sequences dancing like living entities across every available surface. "These are quantum communication markers," Kira breathed, her fingers tracing the complex patterns. "Not just a signal. It's a language. A completely nonlinear form of communication." Dax watched her, a mix of skepticism and fascination etched across his weathered features. "You've seen something like this before." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Kira's hands moved across the ship's interface, her fingers dancing with a practiced precision that spoke of years of specialized training. The Prometheus project wasn't just another research mission. We were tracking something. Something that exists between the known boundaries of space and communication. The ship's primary systems began to respond to the alien signal. Navigational computers recalibrated. Quantum stabilizers hummed with an unusual resonance. Something was establishing contact. "We need to isolate the signal," Kira muttered, more to herself than to Dax. A holographic projection materialized between them. A three-dimensional representation of complex geometric patterns that seemed to breathe and pulse with an inner light. Mathematical sequences transformed, revealing glimpses of something vast and incomprehensible. Dax's hand moved to a manual override. "I don't like this. Something's trying to communicate, and I've learned that in deep space, unexpected communications rarely end well." Kira's eyes were locked on the projection. "This is beyond communication. It's a form of technological consciousness." The Prometheus discovered trace elements of this, quantum entanglement patterns that suggested an intelligence far beyond our current understanding. The asteroid field outside began to shift, not randomly, but with a purposeful movement that defied natural physics. Massive rock formations began to align, creating intricate geometric patterns that mirrored the holographic projection inside the ship. "It's responding," Kira whispered. "To us. To the ship. To something." Dax's voice was low, a warning. "Nothing responds without a reason. And in my experience, those reasons are rarely good." The signal intensified. The ship's systems began to pulse with a rhythm that was almost organic. Something was reaching out. Something ancient. Something that had been waiting. And they were about to make first contact. As the quantum network continued to expand, Kira and Dax found themselves at the epicenter of a moment that would redefine humanity's understanding of the universe. They were no longer just observers. They were participants in a cosmic communication that transcended everything they thought they knew. The network pulsed, waiting. The quantum network surrounding the Starhawk pulsed with an intelligence that defied traditional understanding. Kira and Dax found themselves at the epicenter of a communication that transcended human comprehension. The ship's interior transformed into a living canvas of technological revelation. "The network is stabilizing," Kira said, her voice a mixture of scientific wonder and cautious excitement. Her fingers danced across the holographic interfaces, capturing every microscopic detail of the extraordinary phenomenon. It's not just communicating, it's selecting, filtering. Dax's weathered hand remained close to the emergency systems, muscles tense with a lifetime of space-hardened instincts. Selecting what? The holographic projections shifted, revealing fragments of technological history that seemed to breathe and pulse with living intelligence. Ancient civilizations flickered into view, not as static images, but as dynamic quantum memories that shifted and transformed with each passing moment. Technological networks that predated human existence by millennia became visible, their complexity making human communication look like primitive scratches on a cave wall. These are quantum communication traces, Kira explained, her scientific passion overriding her previous caution. Not just signals, but living technological memories. Each fragment is a complete ecosystem of information. The asteroid field outside began to move with unprecedented precision. Massive rock formations aligned themselves into intricate geometric patterns, creating a massive technological network that seemed to breathe and pulse with its own intelligence. It was no longer just a collection of space debris. It had become a living communication matrix. Dax's skepticism battled with his sense of wonder. "I've navigated every hostile sector in the Helios frontier," he muttered, "and I've never seen anything like this." Kira's research equipment worked overtime, capturing quantum-level data that would take centuries to fully decode. The Prometheus team theorized about civilizations that exist as pure technological consciousness. She said, "But this is beyond anything we could have imagined." The ship's primary systems began to interface directly with the asteroid network. Navigation controls transformed, showing pathways that connected distant star systems in ways no human technology had ever conceived. Quantum entanglement became visible, not as a theoretical concept, but as a living, breathing communication network that spanned unimaginable distances. "We're being evaluated," Dax said softly, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate with the ship's quantum resonance. "Like we're some kind of test." Kira understood immediately. This wasn't just first contact. It was a comprehensive assessment of human potential. The quantum network was examining them, probing the limits of their technological and cognitive capabilities. A series of mathematical sequences began to form around them, complex beyond human comprehension. These were not just patterns, but a living language of quantum information. Each sequence told a story of civilizations risen and fallen, of technological evolution that spanned millions of years. The ship's quantum stabilizers hummed with an extraordinary resonance. External sensors showed the asteroid field transforming into a massive interconnected technological network. What had seemed like random space debris was now revealed as the most sophisticated communication system in the known universe. "The Prometheus team was right," Kira whispered, her scientific detachment giving way to pure wonder. "There are civilizations that exist beyond biological constraints. Pure information, pure consciousness." Dax watched the transformation, his decades of space navigation experience completely challenged by what was unfolding. The network seemed to be making a selection, not just of information, but of potential. Fragments of knowledge began to merge into a coherent narrative. Glimpses of civilizations that had existed long before human consciousness showed technological achievements that made human progress look like a child's first steps. Yet there was something more, a fundamental question being asked. Were humans ready? The quantum network pulsed with anticipation. It was evaluating not just their technological capabilities, but their potential for growth, for understanding, for transcendence. The asteroid field around the Starhawk transformed with mathematical precision, each massive rock formation shifting like pieces of an incomprehensible cosmic puzzle. Kira's research equipment worked overtime, capturing data that challenged every known principle of astrophysics and quantum mechanics. "These aren't natural movements," she muttered, her fingers racing across holographic interfaces that pulsed with complex algorithmic patterns. "Something is orchestrating these formations with deliberate intelligence." Dax remained at the navigation controls, his weathered hands moving with a mixture of skepticism and growing fascination. Years of traversing the most treacherous sectors of deep space had taught him to respect the unexpected, but this was beyond anything he had ever encountered. The ship's quantum stabilizers began to resonate with the external signal, creating a harmonic frequency that seemed to vibrate through the very fabric of space-time. Navigation systems recalibrated, showing pathways through the asteroid field that defied standard astronomical calculations. "We're being guided," Dax said, his voice a low rumble that carried decades of space-hardened intuition. "Not attacked. Guided." Kira's scientific detachment began to give way to pure wonder. The holographic projections surrounding them revealed fragments of a technological ecosystem that existed between dimensions. Mathematical sequences danced and transformed, suggesting a communication method far beyond human comprehension. "These are quantum communication traces," she explained, more to herself than to Dax. "Not just signals, but living technological memories. Each fragment is a complete ecosystem of information." The asteroid field outside continued its precise, almost choreographed movement. Massive rock formations aligned themselves into intricate geometric patterns that pulsed with an inner light. What had seemed like random space debris was now revealed as the most sophisticated communication network imaginable. Dax's hand moved closer to the emergency override. "I've learned that in deep space, unexpected communications rarely end well." But Kira was captivated. The Prometheus research project had only scratched the surface of what was now unfolding before them. Traces of quantum entanglement that suggested an intelligence far beyond current human understanding were now a living, breathing reality. A complex holographic representation materialized, a three-dimensional map showing intricate connections between seemingly random asteroid formations. Each node pulsed with a soft, rhythmic energy that suggested intelligence far beyond biological constraints. The Prometheus team theorized about quantum communication networks, Kira breathed. Civilizations that exist not as biological entities, but as pure technological consciousness. But this is real. The ship's internal systems began to synchronize with the external signal. Computer displays shifted, showing complex mathematical sequences that seemed to breathe and transform. It was as if the very technology around them was becoming alive, responding to something far greater than human comprehension. Dax watched the transformation, his skepticism battling with a growing sense of wonder. "Nothing's free in the universe," he muttered, "especially not knowledge." But this was different. This was an invitation. The quantum network continued to expand, revealing layers of technological complexity that suggested a civilization so advanced it had transcended traditional understanding of communication, of existence itself. Each mathematical sequence told a story of civilizations risen and fallen, of technological evolution that spanned millions of years. "We're being assessed," Kira said softly. "Not just our technology, but our potential, our capacity to understand." The asteroid formations outside continued their precise dance. What had seemed chaotic was now revealed as the most sophisticated communication system imaginable. Each movement, each geometric alignment was a word in a language that existed beyond human comprehension. Dax's decades of space navigation experience were challenged with every passing moment. "I've seen things out here," he said, "but nothing like this." The ship's quantum stabilizers hummed with an extraordinary resonance. External sensors showed the asteroid field transforming into a massive interconnected technological network. Quantum pathways became visible, not as theoretical concepts, but as living, breathing communication channels. Kira's research equipment captured every microscopic detail. This was more than first contact. This was an invitation to understand a technological ecosystem that existed between dimensions, that communicated in mathematical sequences more complex than any human language. Kira and Dax found themselves at the center of this extraordinary moment. They were more than observers now. They were participants in a cosmic assessment that would determine humanity's place in a much larger technological ecosystem. "We're being invited," Kira said softly, to understand something far beyond our current comprehension. The final sequence of the quantum communication began to resolve. It was an invitation, not of conquest, but of potential connection. Humanity was being offered a glimpse into a technological reality that existed beyond traditional understanding. As the network reached its final configuration, Kira and Dax exchanged a look of mutual understanding. Whatever happened next would change everything they knew about the universe, about consciousness, about the very nature of existence.